Chloe Cole was only 12 when she thought transitioning would be the answer to her struggles. A year later, she found herself trapped in a painful reality, scarred for life by irreversible treatments. Today, we'll explore Chloe's journey, the emotional toll, and the growing movement against these so-called life-saving treatments that many now see as dangerous. This is the untold side of gender-affirming care.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a detransitioner. I speak to you today as a victim of one of the biggest medical scandals in the history of the United States of America.
Woke gender specialist. Do you want a dead daughter or a living transgender son?
At the age of 12, I began to experience what my medical team would later diagnose as gender dysphoria. I was well into an early puberty, and I was very uncomfortable with the changes that were happening to my body. I was intimidated by male attention, and when I told my parents that I felt like a boy, in retrospect, all I meant was that I hated puberty, that I wanted this newfound sexual attention to go away, that I looked up to my brothers a little bit more than I did to my sisters. I came out as transgender in a letter I sent on the dining room table. My parents were immediately concerned. They felt like they needed to get outside help from medical professionals, but this proved to be a mistake. It immediately set our entire family down a path of ideologically motivated deceit and coercion. The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty-blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone. The resulting menopausal-like hot flashes made focusing on school impossible. I still get joint pains and weird pops in my back, but they were far worse when I was on the blockers. A month later, when I was 13, I had my first testosterone injection. It's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. I had a double mastectomy at 15. They tested my amputated breast for cancer. And I was cancer-free, of course. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with my still developing body or my breasts, other than that, as an insecure teenage girl, I felt awkward about it. After my breasts were taken away from me, the tissue was incinerated. Before I was able to legally drive, I had a huge part of my future womanhood taken from me. I will never be able to breastfeed. I struggle to look at myself in the mirror at times. I still struggle to this day with sexual dysfunction. And I have massive scars across my chest, and the skin grafts that they took of my nipples are weeping fluid today, and they were grafted into a more masculine positioning, they said. After surgery, my grades in school plummeted. Everything that I went through did nothing to address my underlying mental health issues that I had. And my doctors, with their theories on gender, thought that all my problems would go away as soon as I was surgically transformed into something that vaguely resembled a boy. Their theories were wrong. The drugs and surgeries changed my body, but they did not and could not change the basic reality that I am and forever will be a female. When my specialist first told my parents that they could have a dead daughter or a live transgender son, I wasn't suicidal. I was a happy child who struggled because she was different. However, at 16, after my surgery, I did become suicidal. I'm doing better now, but my parents almost got the dead daughter promised to them by my doctors. My doctors had almost created the very nightmare they said they were trying to avoid. So what message do I want to bring to American teenagers and their families? I didn't need to be lied to. I needed compassion. I needed to be loved. I needed to be given therapy to help me work through my issues, not affirm to my delusion that by transforming into a boy, it would solve all my problems. We need to stop telling 12-year-olds that they were born wrong, that they are right to reject their own bodies and feel uncomfortable with their own skin. We need to stop telling children that puberty is an option, that they can choose what kind of puberty they will go through, just so they can choose what clothes to wear or what music to listen to. Puberty is a rite of passage to adulthood, not a disease to be mitigated. Today, I should be at home with my family celebrating my 19th birthday, and instead I'm making a desperate plea to my elected my elected representatives, learn the lessons from other medical scandals like the opioid crisis, to recognize that doctors are human too, and sometimes they are wrong. My childhood was ruined along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks. This needs to stop. You alone can stop it. Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience. Please let me be your final warning.
Expert. It's not possible to change your sex. During the congressional hearing, the dangers and due process violations of gender-affirming care for children, Dr. Jennifer Bowens, director of the Center for Family Studies, Family Research Council, reaffirmed that there's a 100% failure rate for sex change operations and that you cannot change your sex.
There's a 100% failure rate for sex change operations, isn't there? Because it's not possible to change your sex?
That's right.
100% failure rate for these procedures.
That's right. You can't change your sex.
She mentioned that over 80% of members of the American Academy of Pediatrics have requested a literature review on gender-affirming care, but they were denied the request. Dr. Bowens also cited a Swedish study finding that individuals who undergo gender transition surgeries have a suicide rate is significantly higher than the general population. The number is shocking, 19 times higher, casting doubt on the claim that these treatments are life-saving.
But what the data that we do have, which is probably the most reliable data point available, is from a Swedish study, and it looked at over 10 years, which is really important because regret doesn't just happen a year after some sort of transition. And what you see is a suicide rate that's associated with 19 times higher than the general population.
A long-term study from researchers in the Netherlands found that children will eventually grow out of gender confusion. The researchers concluded that it's normal for adolescents to have doubts about their identity, including gender identity, and that this is fairly common during this age. Transgender activists often argue that if children experiencing gender discomfort aren't given irreversible treatments and surgeries, they'll be unhappy or suicidal. However, this new study suggests that most minors with gender dysphoria will eventually grow out of it. Other studies show that some transgender surgeries promoted by activists may actually increase suicide rates. There's an alarming rise in children identifying as transgender. In the UK, referrals for gender treatment went from 97 in 2009 to 2,510 in 2018, a more than 4,000% increase in 10 years. A recent UCLA survey found that the number of teens identifying as transgender in the US has doubled to around 300,000 in the last 5 years, while the rate for adults has stayed the same. According to the Gender Mapping Project, there were only a few pediatric gender clinics in the US a decade ago. Now, over 200 clinics have emerged to meet the growing demand from adolescents seeking medical transitions. In addition to Chloe Cole, other notable detransitioners across the U.S. have come forward to share their stories of regret after undergoing gender-affirming treatments. Camille Kiefel, a 32-year-old from Oregon, is suing her healthcare providers, claiming she wasn't properly warned about the risks involved. Like Cole, Kiefel went through hormone therapy and surgery only to regret it later. There's also Walt Heyer, who transitioned in the 1980s and lived as a woman for 8 years before deciding to detransition, and Helena Kirshner, who started transitioning in her teens while dealing with body image and identity struggles. All of them say they were pressured by medical professionals to make quick decisions about transitioning, decisions they later realized carried huge consequences. Many report feeling rushed into treatments, often under the claim that it was the only way to prevent serious mental health issues or even suicide. Chloe Cole has actively testified in multiple state legislatures, including Missouri, Florida, and Ohio, sharing her experiences of transitioning and detransitioning. Her story has been pivotal in shaping the discourse surrounding gender-affirming care for minors, leading to the introduction and support of numerous restrictive bills in state legislatures. In response to stories like Chloe's, lawmakers are starting to push for legislative change. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced the Protect Children's Innocence Act, which would ban gender-affirming care for minors, including puberty blockers, hormone treatments, and surgeries. This legislation aims to protect children from making irreversible decisions they may later regret. Chloe's journey, and the journeys of countless others, show us that children deserve time to grow, to question, and to find their way, without being pushed into permanent, life-altering decisions. The consequences of gender-affirming care are real, and they are irreversible. If Chloe's story resonates with you, share it. Educate yourself and others on the growing number of detransitioners and the long-term effects of these procedures. And join the conversation about protecting children from making decisions that could shape and possibly destroy their future.
I speak to you in the hope that you will have the courage to bring the scandal to an end and ensure that other vulnerable teenagers, children, and young adults don't go through what I went through. Please let me be your final warning. Thank you.